pick up my gun, had got my gun redone.
Welcome to the November meeting of the Commission on Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks for the state of Mississippi. We want to welcome everybody that's out there on this opening deer season eve. And make sure everybody's got their license and they're orange and they're ready to go. Wish everybody out there good luck on, well, I guess it's in the eve. Tomorrow's the eve. Tomorrow's the eve. So look forward to that. Good deer season. I think it's probably going to be one of the best ones we've had. So we'll start out. I don't believe we have any guests this morning in-house due to our restrictions.
Hopefully we got plenty of guests out.
Hope we got all you guests out there that are listening, so welcome. We ask Robert Cook, would you open us up in prayer? Got a lot to be thankful for.
Let us pray. Loving and merciful God, we come this morning giving you thanks. Your word teaches us to consider you in all things, and you would direct us. So we come before you this morning, dear Father. Even though we are in the midst of a pandemic, we are in the midst of various trials and tests that we are enduring as a state and as a nation and as the world. But Father, we know that you are the Lord of all things, and that we are to look to you, for you and you alone are in control. And Father, as we approach this season of Thanksgiving, we reflect back on 2020. We know that we have endured much. But Father, we thank you. We know that there are things in each and every day that are uniquely suited for us, that you have designed and purpose for us. And that even in times of trials and times of tests, we have reason to celebrate. We have reason to give you thanks. And Father, look to us now as we attend to the affairs of this day. We ask that you will continue to be with those who are enduring sickness and loss as a result of this pandemic, particularly those that men and women of the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. And be with them as they recover, Father, touch their hearts and their mind and strengthen them in every way. Look to us now as we attend to this day. Pray that all that we do and all that we say will be pleasing in your holy sight. It is in the name of Jesus the Christ we ask all these things. Amen.
I just want to mention one thing before going to the minutes. When things were normal pre-COVID, we were doing a conservation award for different people, stewards around the state that have really given to our state and given to conservation. And we look forward to reviving that, but we just don't feel comfortable of doing that right now. But we just want to let all those out there know that Commissioner Coopwood started that, and I think it's a great award and a great idea, and we want to continue that, but we just have had to pause it because of COVID restrictions that we're under right now. But there's a lot of good people out there that have given back to this state and given back to our conservation and wildlife needs, and we want to recognize those people as we go forward. So we'll get that back going whenever time allows and whenever rules and restrictions allows. All right, so we need to approve the minutes for
Mr.
October
Chairman.
meeting.
I have read the minutes and I move to be approved as read.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passed. So that's the minutes that passed for October. Doc, is there any need for changing on the agenda?
We have one item to add to the agenda on the other business, to be trespassing over private lands during floods. Be presented by Colonel Adcock
You want that as first or last?
first. Well, it doesn't matter.
Okay,
We can do it last.
We'll do it first. No, we can do it last, all right, we'll do it last. It may take a little bit.
Chair, I move the agenda be approved.
I'll make a second.
All in favor? Any opposition? All right, do we have any public comments today? I don't have any registered.
Haven't received any.
All right, Mr. Thompson, look forward to your good report.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, our report for the month of October shows revenue up 16% compared to last year. Resident license sales are up 9%. Sportsman's licenses are up 5% compared to last year. Small game freshwater fishing, 13%. WMA permits, 21%. More apprentice licenses have been sold this year, so more new hunters out in the field. Sportsman's apprentice up 12%. All game apprentice 54%, and small game apprentice up 68% from last year. Non-resident license sales are up 22%. All game 24%. The small game hunting 21%, and fishing privileges are up as well. The annual freshwater fishing 21%, 3-day 15%, and the 1 day is up 4%. And WMA permits for non-residents are up 32%. 32%,
For
yes, sir.
non-residents.
For non-residents.
These
What about
numbers-
residents?
These numbers are great.
Aren't they though?
I mean, they were great last month, but I think these are even better.
Resident
Maybe the
WMA permits are up
pandemic is-
21%.
So resident
Coming
WMA
in
is up
something good.
21%, and non-residents up 32%.
Can't go to football games.
You can't go in, you can't
That's
do
right.
it.
You can't go to football, can't go to basketball coaches even got the corona.
Last couple of categories, the permit category is up 16%, and lifetime licenses are up 25%. At the bottom of the new report, we kind of made some modifications to the bottom per your request, Chairman. In FY '20, we had a total of 29,596 WMA downloads. And the next two columns are year-to-date comparisons. So last year, 9,016. This year, 4,761. And those numbers will dwindle down because when we first launched the app, the majority of our customers did the download. So most people already have it. Auto renewal customers, we did them the same way in FY '20. 53,135 set up for auto renewal. Year-to-date last year, 13,807. This year, 8,921 so far. And license packages sold. Year-to-date last year, 1,936, and so far this year, 3,936.
So, obviously, the app downloads on the WMA check-in is being really used, and everybody's getting used to it, and everybody's pretty happy with it.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
good. That's good. Auto renewal, that's a big number right there.
It is.
What exactly is an apprentice license?
The apprentice license is for somebody that's over the age of 16 that needs hunter ed but hadn't taken it yet, and you can only buy it one time.
One time.
Yes.
I didn't know that category. That's,
Yeah, I had to use one of those.
okay.
I noticed on the, this is the regular app, it has a little icon for WMA check-in on the app, but of course it doesn't do anything. You have to you have to have a separate WMA check-in app.
That's correct.
correct?
Yes.
So my question would be, you know, maybe when you could make them where when you tap on that WMA check-in, it says, go get the app or something.
I'll check on that. I thought we made some changes to it where you can get to it from the main.
There's no link, I
app.
guess, is what I'm saying.
Okay. I
Or
can
you
look
could just
into
say, need to download the WMA app or something, that's just one
Okay.
little.
I'll look into it.
But any new initiatives you guys have, anything you're looking to do in the near future as far as licensing or changes, or you feel like you're just on good track?
Yeah, right now, the licenses, we haven't talked about doing anything else to it, but we are planning on putting boat renewal, the capability of renewing
Okay.
boats on there. So your boats can show up on it in addition to your licenses that are
Okay.
active.
What about, so we got hammered at opening the dove season. Are we ready for opening the deer season?
We're ready. We're on standby. We have a contingency plan just in case, but
case.
we think everything is
Probably not gonna
fine
be
this year.
quite as deal because most of the people that dove hunted have got their license for deer hunting, so should be probably in pretty good shape, but
Right.
probably gonna get hammered anyway.
Talked to the vendor several times,
Good.
so.
Come on, we
they've assured us.
wanna sell them, bring them on.
Absolutely.
That's right, it's good, so everything should go good.
Yes, sir.
Good report.
Okay.
Great
Thanks,
report.
Jason.
Thank
You know,
you.
it's weird, ever since, Mr. Bolden left, all of a sudden we got good reports on it.
Hope he's listening.
Mr. Cook, you can make sure he.
Yeah, make sure he
heard
can.
Make sure.
Heard that comment.
I was saying the same thing.
Tell him we love him.
He sent his regards.
Hey, good man. Wish him the best. All right. So, next, we, talk about law enforcement. The Colonel. Got 4 coming back for, right before the hunt season.
Good morning. Okay, for the month of October, there were a total of 244 citations written. Top 5 is going to be license, number 1 at 50. Then no WMA permit, trespassing, supplemental feeding, and 10 headlighting. We are continuing to patrol waterways. We've had several details going on there. In the middle of all this, we've just completed our in-service training at MCOTA with no issues. We set a protocol for COVID, daily cleaning. We did not let officers spend the night. We kept them distant, so that turned out real well. A lot of
How many are still, so they go now? How many we got?
the in-service is for our already sworn officers. That we do a yearly retraining. They do firearms, taser, go over laws, other things. Excuse me, that's not COVID related. We still have 9 at Malota that are graduating this morning.
Great.
Congratulations.
So they will be ready to go out with FTOs pretty quick.
Are they ready to go to work, or they don't have to go back to, have they already been to the deferral?
Yes, sir. They've completed all that. We've got a couple of things we'll bring them back for. We're gonna probably let them work with FTOs. We're in discussions on that right now because of the outbreak.
They won't be officially graduated though until sometime later.
They will officially be law enforcement officers.
Okay, good,
Yes, sir. They will be sworn in.
good.
They went to Dakota first.
Correct. Correct. Excuse me. Turcotte customer count 1754 for this period. McIver 762 and McHenry 348. Keep in mind McHenry, we've had to shut it down for a short period of time because of storm damage. We had quite a bit of damage down there. We lost 2 of the shooting sheds. The roof blew off those during the hurricane. And the main cart shed, equipment shed, and we lost another equipment shed that we utilize for tractors. We've got that cleaned up. We're working on getting it repaired at this time.
I just want to make a comment. I've got, in the past week and a half, I was telling on Doc yesterday, at, McIver, I've gotten two different of the Scholastic Shooting Sports team members that are from my area went out of their way to send me a note to say how much they enjoyed the facility and how great it was and how much the staff did such a good job. And I thought that was really, for them to say that was good. Their big request was, can y'all come up with places for us closer to practice? So, I mean, that's one thing we're discussing, to find out a way to do this. This program is really going gangbusters, it's going good. So as we continue on, I know we got plans for one down south, but it's really, folks are doing a good job of doing that, so hats off to the team.
They were just able to complete the fall qualifier. It was like 900 students.
Yeah.
And this was an undertaking because we had to abide by the COVID regulations. It worked out real well. We kept everybody separated. They had different flight times. We had to do multiple days in order to do it. It worked out very well, and I think we had a very good turnout. We've also got another one. Thank you. We've got another one upcoming at Turcotte for another 700 students. So we'll have to apply the same standard to keep those students separated and keep it clean and keep it safe.
I think it's something that we need to, if we can reach out to private facilities to ask, around that, if there's an opportunity for these teams to be able to, I don't care if it's once or twice a month, once a month or something like that, could they use their facility to bring the kids out and practice would be a big plus. And I think most, facilities would do that are around the state would help these kids out to get more involved.
Yeah.
But that would be a good thing.
Chief, do we have any update on McHenry Sporting Clay?
I think we're still in that. I'll have to get an exact on it. I know we were in a waiting period with the feds on the grant, but everything are we in the bidding out process?
The design's finished.
Right, the design is finished. So all that's been done. I think we're in the bidding out process right now.
So the target, the possibility of operations down there could be in late spring, early summer, if everything goes right as far as
Yes,
the bid
if
process?
everything goes right, that's a possibility. So
Of
we've already done the timber
2021?
cut.
Really?
The timber cut and all that's already been done, so a lot of that will depend on the stuff we have to do with DFA.
It's not quite as long-term a project as, won't be as big a project as we got.
Colonel Adcock,
Yes, sir.
I was looking at your pictures.
Yes, sir.
Did you have a trail camera set up with that idiot pouring the corn out on the ground? How'd you get a picture?
It's very
Was
possible.
certainly a law enforcement officer wasn't standing there while he was doing it.
No, sir, we do utilize a lot of trail cameras. We have quite a few of them. We do utilize them. We actually have a training class on how to set them up where you can't detect where they are. So, yes, sir.
That's crazy there.
And people are not above posting themselves doing things wrong also.
Oh, yeah. Facebook.
Oh, I know.
Yes, sir.
Idiots.
Outlaws.
Currently on hunting-related accidents or incidents.
Yes.
We don't like to call them accidents because most all of them can be avoided. We are at 6 currently for the year. You may remember, back in July, we had I believe it was a 14-year-old hog hunting. It was self-inflicted fatality. We had, let's see, 1, 2, 3 dove hunting incidents. None of those were fatal. We've had 2 tree stand. We've had a tree stand in October, and we just had another one this past week down in Lawrence County. Neither one of those were fatal.
People just won't use that safety harness every time.
No, sir. And they break. I know at least one of these, a pin broke in the stand and dumped a guy out. So, yes, sir. If you climb, it'll happen.
Yeah.
You will fall. I have 4 reinstatements to bring before you today. First one I'm gonna bring is Jeffrey Mayo. Jeffrey was convicted in 2018 of headlighting. He has written us a letter of request. He has completed his hunter education, has satisfied the court. I'm gonna let him tell you his story, and then I'll give you my recommendation.
It's just, I did something wrong, I know I did it wrong, and I ain't doing it again, that's about all I can say.
What'd you do? What happened?
Just, mostly just driving out, spotlighting, and,
Where do you hunt? What county?
Tyler County,
What part?
what,
As far as Kosciuszko goes, north, south, east, west?
north, south,
Huh?
south, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the other north then.
I apologize, I'm just,
South of Kosciuszko.
yes, sir, yes, sir.
This is gonna be the partner to the case that you heard last month.
Right.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So y'all just riding around the road spotlighting or what else?
Just riding well,
It's all right.
Chief, help him out.
Help me.
I'm sorry, I mean,
That's okay.
I can't help,
That's
It's
all
all
right.
right.
That's all right, we're
I
just,
can't,
we're just trying to learn,
I
that's
mean,
all.
it's just like,
Take a deep breath, you all right?
No,
Come on,
it's
man,
okay.
you
I
all
just get
right?
nervous and when it's
Well,
That's
all we
okay.
wanna hear is what you did. And you can tell us that, but you
Yes,
just
sir,
take a deep breath, relax.
Yeah,
uh,
we're just like you.
yes, sir. Riding in the truck, and I had, somebody in the truck with me. He had a gun, and, he was kinda spotlighting, and I was just driving, and,
So you didn't know y'all were going spotlight when you left?
not really, sir. And, he just told me, he said he was looking for a deer that he shot, and that's.
They shot.
Well, they claimed he was, I don't know, well, he shot before dark, he just couldn't find it, he's gonna help me, no, I was gonna go help him find it. And, so we kinda went, after we couldn't find it, that's when we kinda rode around and started looking.
Well, did you shoot again, or you find another deer, or you
No,
shot?
sir, no,
You
sir.
just out there looking, and they happen to have a loaded gun with you?
Yes, sir.
That's it, okay. That's pretty well what it is, Colonel?
Well, this was in an area that the officers had complaints on, of headlighting going on. And as you may remember, Mr. Haldeman's coming before you last month, and they were shining with intent. You may well remember that he admitted that they did have bad, and I think his exact words were they had bad intents.
Yes, sir, like, yeah.
So you did know what you were doing when you left?
Well, I mean,
Or he did.
I'm sorry. They
actually came by, the officers were set up in this area, they came by the officers shining, and they had the weapon, shells, everything necessary, and at that time they were charged with headlighting.
So the officers pulled them over before they shot or anything?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Do you understand why it's dangerous to shoot at night?
Yes, sir.
Tell us what you think.
It's, really, you don't know what is out there, and you don't know, somebody might be, where you can't see them, you might accidentally
Right.
shoot them instead of, and you might accidentally shoot into a house or something, But yes, sir, I realize it's really dangerous. And I regret, being part of it.
Why do you think that we should reinstate you?
Well, about most I do now is fish. Well, I don't fish right now, but. Man, that's all right. But I've been missing fishing.
I got you.
And I've been wanting to go fishing, I just haven't been, it's just, not having a license, it's been, it's just been tearing me.
Okay.
Colonel, what's your recommendation?
What's your recommendation, Colonel?
I recommend that we give him a chance this time on. If he gets caught, or has another wildlife violation or MDWFP violation, that we go back and reinstate his original license revocation, and that if we ever catch him again, that we do not consider giving his license back.
Jeffrey, I have no doubt that you don't want to stand in that position again and be in front of us, so I'm gonna move that we reinstate your license.
I apologize for being so
all right.
nervous, sir. I mean, I'm not good in front of a lot of people.
It's okay.
I second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good luck to you.
Okay, what do I need to?
She'll take care of you out here.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Next, I have Austin McCord.
Jeffrey.
Jeffrey was
Jeffrey.
kind of nervous,
I
wasn't he?
believe Jeffrey's smoking something.
He's nervous.
He's nervous. We need to let him go.
Yeah.
We just that kind of group.
Austin McCoy. Big league.
Same thing.
That's in the northeast.
Austin was convicted in 2019, headlighting. He has satisfied the court. He has retaken his hunter education. He's written a letter of request to me. At this time, I'm gonna let him tell you his story.
Me and one of my buddies went riding around one night, and we seen a big buck on the side of the road, and he pulled a spotlight out from behind the seat, handed it to me and said, "Hold this while I shoot," and I held it. And he shot, and then there was a car come up behind us. Got her tag number, I went home. They took me home. And about 30 minutes later, the game warden knocked on the door. We sat on the front porch and talked a minute. And we went to court, or to the jail, and I got my citations and went on from there. And I've learned my lesson, and I was gonna see if I could receive my license back.
Is that it, Colonel?
That's basically it.
How much did it cost you, dollar-wise?
I think around 2,500. That might be a little low.
Was it worth 2,500?
No, sir.
Did you actually shoot the buck or you just saw it?
He shot at it.
Did you get it?
No.
No, it's not. Anything else, Chief?
No, sir, that's basically it. My recommendation is that if he gets caught with another MDWFP violation in the next year, that we go back and reinstate this revocation for the full 3 years. Also, if he gets caught again, that this commission does not, I would not recommend that he gets his license back.
Need a motion?
I move we reinstate his license.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Good luck to you.
Good luck to you,
And let
Austin.
us see you again in this circumstance.
Next, I have Hunter Neiman.
Yeah, what guy?
Hunter has satisfied the court. He has retaken his hunter education, and he has written a letter requesting to come before the commission, a heartfelt letter, to see about getting his license back, and we'll let him tell you his story.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Hunter, I'm from Hernando. I don't want to take up too much of y'all's time this morning. I'm sure y'all all know I'm here. 2 years ago, me and a buddy of mine went riding around late at night, and a couple of girls, I guess we were trying to show out, or I don't really know what to say, what we were trying to do. It's made a big mistake, and we shot a deer off the road. We were later pulled over, and game warden came up and detained us, and we went through the court process. I'm not here to make any excuses or deny what I did. I take full responsibility. I do want y'all to know I'm a very passionate hunter. I have the utmost respect for the animals I hunt. I know that it doesn't sound that way through this report, but I've been hunting my whole life, and that was a terrible decision I made. It's caused me to miss out on some valuable time with my family and my friends, most importantly my dad. And I can't begin to describe the humility and embarrassment of when deer season comes open and your dad's looking at you with disappointed eyes, knowing that you don't get to hunt together. And for those of you that have wives that hunt, I can only tell you how pissed off she is when hunting season comes around and I can't take her to sit in that stand. I'm just here today to respectfully ask that y'all give me a second chance to do what's right, and I can promise you'll never see me up here again for anything like this.
Where were you hunting? Where were you doing this? Where were you with the girls and stuff? Where else?
It was in Hernando, just south of town.
And
It was,
what county is that?
DeSoto County.
In DeSoto?
Yes, sir.
Was this something you'd done a lot, or just?
No, sir. I've never. I just got back from deployment. My buddy was going through a divorce, and I don't know if we were just blowing off steam or what. We were riding around and we had a gun, and we saw the deer, and it just all kind of happened. I'm usually keep to the rules the best I can and follow them. And I can't make any excuse for what I did.
Well, deer season open Saturday.
Yes, sir. And I'm really hoping that I get to
Get to
I feel that way you were here.
We don't want your wife to keep you in the doghouse.
Oh, please.
What's your recommendation, Colonel?
I recommend that if, just as the others, if we catch him again with any violation, that we reinstate this revocation for the full 3 years. Also, if he gets caught again, that we will not consider reinstating his license.
Question, I see you got the DU shirt on. Do you duck hunt up there too?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Where do y'all duck hunt?
We did have a lease in Tunica. Obviously, I have not been paying for that in the past few years. I've not wasted that money.
You missed a whole lot.
There's some
Yes,
there's some
from
good
what I've heard, it
WMAs
has
up
not
there.
been too great.
Well, there's some good public land places up there too.
Yes, sir. We've hunted a little around the Coldwater River, around Tate County, DeSoto County area, mainly in the Delta where we can when we can.
Okay.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move we reinstate, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor?
Aye.
Take that girl hunt.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all so much.
Hunter, in the 6 years I've been on commission, you're the most sincere I've ever heard.
I agree.
I
I
appreciate
also
that.
agree.
And I think
The only thing I hope is, I hope those girls that were with you when you're riding around, that was before you got married.
Before, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Me and my current wife were split at the time, after deployment, rough times, but we got back together.
That's good.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, good luck to you.
Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
Last, I have Paxton Work.
That was the best one.
Maybe that's one.
Yeah, that's one of them.
Military guy.
Military.
Taking responsibility.
That's right. He took responsibility. Military, he took responsibility.
No excuse.
Should have thanked him for his
20
service.
years old. He's a teenager.
Thank you, Hunter, for your service.
2 years ago, he was 18 years old.
The next one.
Yeah, but 20 years old, well, just had a birthday, just gone. His birthday is in 2 days. Excellent work. Adams County.
Okay. Paxton also has satisfied the court. He has retaken his hunter education and has sent a letter of request to me to come before you and request to get his license back. I'll let him tell you his story.
Tell us what happened.
We were riding around one night, down one of the back roads by my house. Coming down the road, 2 deer jump out in front of the road. Buddy hits the brakes so he don't hit them. Other buddy in the back seat jumps out, pulls the gun out, loads the gun, shoots one of the deer, and we ended up loading the deer in the back of the truck, running down the road, and one of the guys that lived right up the road, it's like less than a mile from his house. He tried to flag us down, get us to stop. And of course, we were young and arrogant, so we ran around him, thought we could outrun him. Well, so we kept going, got to my house, and that was when he called the law. And down here.
Is that how it happened, Colonel?
Basically it. The officers were able to figure out who it was, and they went to their residence and interviewed them, and they got confessions from them at that time.
Had you done this before around there?
Sir?
Had you done this before around that area?
No, sir. No, sir. We hadn't done it anywhere, really. That was the first time I've been riding around with them folks, and
You been with them since?
No, sir. I have not. Truthfully say, I have not.
What's your recommendation, Colonel?
I recommend we give him an opportunity this time, and this time only, that if he gets another MDWFP violation within the next year, that we reinstate this revocation for the full 3 years. Also, if he gets charged with anything like this again, that we do not consider giving his license back.
Motion?
I move we reinstate.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Good luck to you, Paxton. Leave them guns at home at night.
Where's Boss
We'll do the waterways now or wait?
That-
Yeah, you can go ahead and do the waterway.
Okay. I've got a sheet I'm gonna pass out to y'all. This is how we are instructing our officers
and drive along
to deal with trespassing in flooded water or flooded timber.
This is, it's been a while since we talked about this.
I didn't know we were gonna do this this morning, but I've been thinking about it. You haven't solved it. Old folks didn't
Come
know.
back around.
Yeah.
Good.
While researching the statutes, Attorney General rulings, this is
it.
This is it. This is how we basically have to enforce this. And I know one of the issues is we get to a location and we're unsure. Of course, misdemeanor must be done in the presence of the officers, so the officer's got to see that individual
Colonel, would you
trespassing.
mind reading this?
Yes, sir. Pursuant to State of Mississippi Attorney General Opinion Number 96-0537, nothing herein contained shall authorize any person utilizing said public waterways under the authority granted hereby to hunt, fish, or go on or across any adjacent lands under floodwaters beyond the natural banks of the bed of the public waterway. Floodwater which has overflowed the banks of a public waterway is not a part of the public waterway.
That's pretty clear right there.
Yeah,
clear.
it's very clear.
Pursuant to Mississippi Code 5114, nothing contained in this section shall authorize anyone utilizing a public waterway under the authority granted by this section to trespass upon adjacent lands. So that's the code section, the Attorney General's ruling that pertains to it. It's pretty clear.
So where this is really coming into play is off of the Mississippi River, correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Yeah, so when the floodwaters were up, people felt like they had the authority to go in and hug a tree with a boat on somebody else's land outside of the natural banks.
Correct.
Are you saying they can't do that?
They saying they can, you're
Well,
saying here
they
cannot
cannot
do that.
go beyond that bank. They can,
Of the bank, the Mississippi
The natural
River
bank.
Or an old canal that goes through the woods.
well, if that
That's
is,
the problem.
if that is, I understand. And if that is a part of that public waterway, the public does have the authority to utilize that. If that can be accessed without going across adjacent property land to get to that, yes, sir, they can. If there's a ditch, a slough, or whatever that they're accessing that lake.
But they can't
or
go
slough
past the
by.
natural boundary.
But they cannot get outside that.
Because this is a can
water.
of worms.
I know.
Let me ask you this, Steve. All right, what is the Louisiana and Arkansas laws? Are there laws where you can't cross over in any situation, floodwaters or not, over the natural bank?
I was reading Louisiana law while I was sitting in here, and they are basically bound by the same public trust doctrine and equal footing doctrine that Mississippi is, and theirs says basically the same thing. You cannot go. It says that the river bottom and creek bottoms are public of a navigable waterway, and those are for use by the public. However, the banks of the river are private.
Because, I mean, you know, some of these hunting clubs up and down the river, one in my part of Baldwin County.
Yes, sir.
You literally, you can look at it from a satellite, and then when the water's such and such feet, whatever, Mississippi Gauge, Arkansas City. I mean, Steve, the truth is you can travel through that whole hunting club, all the way behind cabins that no one has
But they
ever.
can't now.
Huh?
They
They
can't
can.
under,
They
they
can.
cannot
They
under
can.
this
Yeah,
scenario.
they can.
They
If
can.
they have,
They
if
can.
they have gone,
If it's navigable, they
That's what
can.
I'm saying, that's the problem. That's the whole deal right here.
if
I'm
they are, if
confused.
they are accessing that by traveling across flooded land, they're trespassing.
No. These are old canals and ditches.
If,
That have water in them when it's not flooded.
No, there's no water in them when they're not flooded. Well, in other words,
Then-
these are just bottoms. That
then it
once
wouldn't be
upon a time,
navigable water.
150 years ago, might have been some kind of whatever. When that water comes up Mississippi River, it goes all in that close.
But that's not
but-
normally
but-
navigable waterway.
That's right.
Okay, well, that's the same problem we're talking about, Sam, in the back of the club we're talking about.
Right.
Is that is nothing more than a glorified ditch, probably from that wall to maybe right here.
Then I would contend to you that's not navigable waterway.
Okay, that's the problem, Steve, we face right now, because they're saying it is. When it goes up, you can go and you just can't go to the right or left and.
Tell them
anchor it.
about familiarizing, all
It's
the
too ambiguous.
familiarizing themselves on the property lines that they normally have trouble with when floodwaters come up. We send them
Yes,
out there to look at the property when it's not flooded, and they'll look at the property when it is flooded, and even put GPS coordinates to know where the banks originally should be as far as non-flooding periods.
yes, sir.
So the only thing you can do, if it's a navigable waterway, you can't block them from using that, but you can prevent them by writing a citation if they're on trespassing on private land.
That's sort of the gray area. What would be considered private in a flood and what wouldn't be?
Anything outside of the natural bank.
Boom, okay, that's not what we're talking about. We're in this club we're talking about right
Can
now.
you draw us a map of what you're talking about?
Well,
We've got maps, but they have maps.
it is, and if you look at the Attorney General rulings on it, and you look at the statute on it, one of the things that is pointed out in there is that if it ever was a public waterway, it remains a public waterway. If this was a oxbow created by the Mississippi River, and they can access that without crossing over adjacent property, then they can access that. That's
It's like-
considered a public waterway.
Like Donaldson Point property, think about it, Scott, if Donaldson Point, for example's property goes along Mississippi River,
Yeah.
and you have oxbow inside it, and the water's up, if they cross over Donaldson Point property line, they're trespassing.
But that's
But-
not
but
what
the-
they're saying. Let me tell you what, that land, the moment we're talking about this little ditch I'm talking about coming off the river, that's private land. That ditch is private land, but when it floods, these guys are taking boats and going through that, and
And
then
getting
they will
out.
jump to
He's-
another
but he's
ditch,
saying-
another ditch, another ditch.
He's saying you're crossing if you cross a private property boundary,
If you're accessing it using a creek, slough, or whatever that is not affected by floodwater. And I did look at the area that you're talking about.
Right.
I pulled it up, I pulled out the Mississippi River historical data, and I pulled up the satellite data. And you can access that as low as 16, 17 feet. That is navigable at that time. Flood stage there is 44 feet. So there's quite a bit of difference, you know, to consider, because actually 16, 17 feet there is actually considered low water. But that would only give them access to
the creek.
to that lake. It's not gonna give them access beyond that.
And
I've
when our
seen-
last meeting, the people who were doing that access were arguing the point they go anywhere.
And that's
And
not
under this,
correct.
they
No, sir,
cannot.
They cannot. They
So
cannot.
Steve, that part we're talking about, they can enter that 4 or 5 ditch and hunt on that ditch.
On the ditch.
On the ditch.
But they can't go beyond it, which you can, if, when the water's high, you can go all the way
Well,
up.
No,
they can't legally.
Can't legally.
They can't legally do
Yeah,
that.
once,
They-
they
So
can
how
go
far
in
They
that
can go to the levee,
This
they go to the
particular-
levee.
This is sort of
physically.
setting a precedent, what I'm getting at. So in this particular piece of land we're talking about, how far can they go down that ditch before they have to stop and say, whoa, wait a minute, that's private land there? If it's the water
You have a
comes
lake
up,
back in there, right?
you have to get 2.
So when you get back to the lake, you're still in a public waterway.
And then you can take another ditch and go to the next lake.
Okay, but then you come out of that public waterway over at the top, on top of the waterfall, and on top of private lands, that's where they can sign it.
That's
Okay,
true.
but that's private land. The moment they leave the Mississippi River, that is private land.
Are you saying the canal is private land?
Yes, I am.
Somebody owns the bottom of that
Yes,
canal?
yes.
Well, you have riparian ownership even within the Mississippi River. So someone owns that, and that's very clear in the Attorney General's rulings and in the law that someone can own that land under that, but the waterway itself is public.
Yeah,
And,
like if you own the middle of the Pearl River, people can still navigate the river, but.
But this makes it
That's-
better
We
than
have-
it was.
we
But this
have
makes it better than
numerous-
it was.
Not really.
This gives his officer, if they go in the hardwoods and anchor to a tree and they're hunting flooded timber, then they're trespassing.
If they're outside the
Yeah,
natural bank.
they can't go, and we both know, they're not simply gonna go in there and throw their decoys out in the middle of that lake.
No.
They're gonna go off, once they do that, once they move off outside that lake, into those woods, they are trespassing.
Okay, so in other words, they take that canal we're talking about, and they go 200 yards in their boat, let's say. And then they pull over to the right 15 feet, anchor on a tree and hunt. That's illegal?
If they're on private land?
If they've gotten out of that lake on private land.
So all they can do, then you're telling me, is that they could joyride more or less in that ditch and turn around and come back, or sit in the middle of that ditch and hunt.
Well, they can do-
And can't go get their stuff that they kill on.
If there's some willow trees growing up right on the ditch bank, you know, they
Hardwood
could
elm.
probably anchor to that or something legally.
Can they?
Well, the old saying that you can't anchor or can't tie to a tree, that's actually addressed in the Attorney General's ruling. I believe that was Mike Moore's ruling. And it says you can. It actually goes so far as to say that a fisherman can dry his nets on the bank. I know that's old law, but it goes so much to say as a person can actually wade, but they cannot get outside that natural bank. So that ditch that goes through there, yes, they can be in that ditch. And that ditch that takes them to that lake, they can be in that lake. They can't get outside that lake. They can't get outside that ditch. Now, when that water gets up and overflows that natural bank of the river, they can't take a shortcut through these woods to get over to this lake. They're gonna have to.
They don't.
In other words, what is legal for them to be in at 5 feet is legal for them to be in at 45 feet.
Yeah.
But just because that water doesn't mean that they can shortcut it, go through here. And I think that's what a lot of them are doing, because, you know, your tree canopy, especially in a narrow ditch like that, once that water gets above a certain level, unless you are really familiar with that, which is what we are or making our officers do is get familiar with that. It would be a very hard thing to tell where that ditch is because, you know, as the water goes up, you get into the canopy of the trees and it all looks the same. So they would either have to mark that on GPS and be very familiar with it. Otherwise, they're gonna be cutting across private property and trespassing. And that's where our officers can deal with.
Sam, I'm gonna tell you, that's, I don't know how we're gonna do this, or it should be done, but the truth is, that is too wide open. I mean, to me, the law ought to be that you stay within the original banks of the Mississippi River, and I don't care if it floods left and right down the river into old oxbows and all, you should not be able to go that. I mean,
When you go to legislature,
that's what's gonna happen. I
if you
think that's
want to change
something.
it,
Well,
but
I don't have any trouble with this city. It says flood water, which has overflowed its banks. In other words, when the river gets up and it's out of its banks of a public waterway, it does not turn, is not a part of the public waterway. So in other words, when it floods, those creeks or sloughs or whatever, they're not part of a public waterway.
And to your point, Bill, this is, in my mind now, compared to our meeting in Cleveland, that
Yeah,
this
2 years
was
ago.
presented, this clears up a lot, to me now, just logically. But that conversation was just what you say, if
Yeah.
it's floodwater, it is navigable water.
Oh, that guy that got up testified, yeah, when that water gets up, we can go anywhere we want
that
to.
was
This right here
terrible.
says you can't.
That says you
Well,
cannot,
the other thing you have to consider also is this is a federal waterway.
exactly.
So it's not as simple as our legislature changing it. You know, the trespassing law as it's written right now, is, you know, it has a fine that's much larger than something that could be set by this commission. So something that's set by this commission would be a class 3 violation, so that's not really gonna help us.
I know the math, because that's the ditch, and then once you go through it, hang on one second, Steve. My
Well, this
goodness,
clarifies
You can go anywhere.
what that meeting was in Cleveland. Well, those two people sat side by side, had completely two different opinions. And this says that once it floods, it don't make it a public
He
waterway.
can go right through that. That's right. Look at this, he can take a left through that ditch, and.
But we can't do anything with the law, unless we get the law.
The GPS really clear up for those officers too.
Yes, sir. That's the other thing that we're doing, is in these problem areas, is we are sending our officers, when the water's down, to get familiar with these areas, so they know where this ditch is.
Yeah.
And they know, and if they get called there and this individual is 10 feet over here outside that ditch, he's trespassing.
Yeah.
But if he's within that ditch, within that lake, that is a public waterway,
Yeah.
then we can't mess with them.
Well, I
But
just-
those that get beyond that bank into those woods, those are trespassing.
And they're taking advantage of a bad situation, is
Yeah,
what they're
they
doing.
are.
That's right. And the thing about it is, you know, who's gonna go throw their decoys out in the middle of that lake while ducks are over here in these hardwoods?
Oh, yeah.
So if they have intent of trespassing, then we're gonna be able to deal with it.
Okay, and then let me just say this. I get calls in my neck of the woods, this is happening in Cahoma County right now, too, there's a couple of places up there saying. But this is the worst we're talking about in Bottle County, because it's got all these little fingering of ditches and canals that go all through that
You
particular
got,
flood.
you got a handful of people that are trying to take advantage of something.
That's right, and the Cahoma County
To
is
make a
not,
point.
to this point, it's more or less taking larger waterways and going in there.
Right.
But this is, to me, I hadn't seen any other example like this, that have all these little fingering through the woods, and people can just go for miles and miles and miles.
Yes, sir.
So, anyway, but, anyway.
You know, unfortunately, most of the waterways that are within the levee system of the Mississippi River, at one time were the Mississippi River. And at one time, they were, commerce took place there. They floated logs, things like that. And that is identified within the Attorney General rulings on this, that if commerce has ever taken place, it's considered a public waterway. So what has changed it is man by the different weirs that were put in the river that's changed the flow. It's, even flood water from year to year changes the flow. So, and it's very possible that where that ditch is this year could be 3 feet over next year. It depends on how fast the water falls. The water takes the mud out.
Yeah.
The faster it falls, the more open it makes these places.
Right.
So it's affected yearly. Also, if you spend much time on the Mississippi River, you can go there this year and not see a tree, and next year willow trees as tall as this room.
That's right.
Is in an area that was not there
That's
last year.
right. Well, you know, Sam, my whole taking since I grew up on that river and 10 miles from it, been on it all my life. I think, I don't know if it would be our responsibility or who, but I do think the law is still, in my mind, it's just not a good law. And I don't know if of course, this our attorneys can tell us, but to me, it should be, the law should be the banks, but I don't know.
All right,
Well, let's see what happens this season.
we definitely cleared it up.
I think
At
it's
least
helped
we know
law
what to do.
enforcement.
Better than it was.
Better than it was.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely better than it was.
Okay?
This has
Thank you,
been-
Colonel.
This has been a long-standing issue.
It has.
Steve, one more
It has.
question, how,
It's just something come to a
are
head.
you gonna try to educate the public on this, anything?
Be pushing.
You know, that's something we can look at. We could, you know, I can get with, Dr. Polis and Mr. Cook and see if it's something that we may want to put up,
Are they gonna educate the
you know, make a
public?
statement, you know, something.
That's why I wanted you
Figure out where we can do
to
that,
read this.
post it, that This is what the law
There's
will
a
be.
lot of confusion, a lot
You
of
know,
it.
it may be something that we can put out, prior to duck season.
That'd probably
Might be a good article for the
It's
paper.
almost
Be
like
aware of these.
give a warning, I mean, not a warning, but say, this is what it is, and if you get on private land, cross private land.
You will be ticketed.
Or law enforcement.
For trespass.
Force. You are trespassing.
Okay?
And that way when they're
They've
caught
been-
and they say, oh, I didn't know.
They've been duly warned.
Yeah. I mean, they'll still say they don't know, of course.
Well, I've been doing this for 20 years. Since that water gets up, I've been doing it. There ain't nothing wrong with that. But it is.
Yeah.
You go on private land.
That's correct.
To me, when it says that, when it floods, that doesn't change anything. That's what that flag says. Nothing changes. It's still, you can't go there in the summer when the water's down. You can't get in there. So when it floods, that doesn't give you the permission to go in there then.
Steve, what are the Mississippi statute, what are the penalties for trespassing both on land and water
It
currently?
starts off at, I believe it's $250, isn't that right? I think so, it's $250.
And that's a class 3?
Well, it's
Class two.
actually considered a class 0. So it's got a specific, there is a class 0.
Statutory violation.
Yeah, that can have it has a specific fine amount. There's other laws.
Set aside for
that. There's
trespassing.
jumping laws, other things that can be a class 0. So to answer your question.
So if these people are definitely trespassing, your officers give them a citation.
Correct.
Then it could be a class 0?
Yes, sir, it would be a class 0.
And
And
what,
I want to say that on the trespassing, that if there's a second subsequent that increases that, I'll have to look at that.
so I think it can go to $500 or something?
250 to 500.
Oh, it's 250 to 500.
Yes, sir.
And a second violation,
I
a third, you'll
believe
check. and see.
that there's opportunity there to step that up. I'll have to go back and read that, make sure that exactly how it reads.
And this goes with land trespassing as well, land or
Yes, sir.
water.
It's
Same.
trespassing, it doesn't matter. Trespassing is trespassing.
And if they poach a deer, and trespass and poach a deer, for example, is anything additional that goes to them?
Yes, sir. They can be charged with possession of game taken illegally, and that deer would be taken away from them. They'd be charged with that.
Well, that's for the deer, so there's an additional citation they can give them for, if they have an
Yes, sir.
animal they
That's
shot or
correct.
whatever.
That's correct.
Like
And how about
this?
waterfowl?
Yes.
Correct. Same thing on
Same
waterfowl.
thing.
Same thing.
So if they're in possession of waterfowl taken while trespassing, so the officer could give them a second violation.
Correct.
Pretty strong.
And if they don't have a license,
Yes, sir.
if their boat's not registered,
Correct.
They just check all the blanks.
and what, if they don't have life jackets or something, I'm thinking, what all the possibilities it would be, an officer could look for.
Okay, according to this, it's 150 to 250. First offense, second offense is 250 to 500. Trespass law.
Don't do it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, going to get the introduction of the new state park specialty tag. Jennifer.
we're gonna have,
That's a new addition.
you like
This
all
is great.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Hats off,
Right, don't have to move.
yeah,
You got a screen on each side.
man,
Very good.
very good.
Thank goodness for Kevin.
Why is setting up these, yeah.
That's PDF. Yep. Okay. Okay, here we go. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, Jennifer,
Thank you for the opportunity to present the new state parks tag. We have been working on this for a couple of years now, so it will go live. The link will go live at noon today. So we will do some social media. We will also, this will be.
On the website or on the
On the
app?
website.
On the website.
We'll eventually try to have it on the app, but I also have some statistics for you on the app also. But yes, we have been working on this for a couple of years, and this is the, what it will actually look like.
Great.
We actually, the biologist, one of the biologists at the museum did a watercolor. So it was from his actual art.
Awesome.
I can't see the sun's in my eye.
So the way this will work with the Department of Revenue, you have to have 300 signed up individuals to purchase the state parks tag. Our goal is to go to print in May, so we hope to have 300 applicants by then. Hopefully we will surpass that, but May 1st is the printing, and then they do another printing in November, so our goal is May. But yes, it will go live today, and very excited about it, so.
Everybody sign up?
That's right, everybody sign up.
So you're gonna put it out on social media with the link?
Yes.
Good.
It will be on social media. And talking about the app, we do have the State Parks app now. It started September 15th. So in 2 months, we have a total of 1,160 downloads. So 908 for iPhone and 202 for Android. So we will continue to push that through social media as well.
So you go to the App Store and you look for Mississippi State Parks. It's a
Yes.
separate app from the Department of Wildlife app.
That's correct.
And that's where you do
You
reservations,
can do reservations, get information about
each park.
parks. Mhm. Yes, sir.
Good Good
That's
stuff.
it. Thank you.
All right. Russ, we got a request, I think, about Hope Outdoors.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Each year, we have organizations that put on hunts for whether it be veterans or those with special needs. Hope Outdoors is one of those such groups that does hunts for special needs in the state of Mississippi. And they are bringing a request forward for your consideration for several hunts that will be taking place over the next couple of months. And they are asking for license exemptions for those hunters that are coming in for these hunts. You can see that there in your book, those individuals that will be participating in the hunt.
Is this Hunter Fordyce is?
No, sir.
Not
No,
different
it's not
from
the
it.
same. Right.
Which, and you recommend this?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll move to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Where will they be hunting at?
They have a hunt in Calhoun, Webster County area, one in Forest, Mississippi, and then one in Marion County. That's their chapter. They have local chapters around the state.
Okay.
And this is a multi-state organization.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Stan?
Would you like to take a break before this next presentation?
I will.
Probably off to.
About 5 minutes? Okay.
We're gonna take a 5-minute break. Thank you.
Trying to keep us moving.
That's right.
It's supposed to, unless it's on it says when it floods, it don't make
Good,
it.
but I wanna see you on the boat patrolling. When those poachers come, I want you to be right there with them, man.
Hey, Cookwood, when me and you hunting together over there, we'll shoot the boats. Shoot a hole in the boat.
I don't know who he's talking to, if we're on the air.
No, I hope not. All right.
Oh, no, he said the name Cookwood, I don't know who's talking.
Which Cookwood?
Next,
Cookwood's is Tennessee.
if everybody's ready to go, next we have our forest management program review, Mr. Stan Priest. How you doing, Mr. Stan?
Good, how about yourself?
Good, thank you.
Good.
Thank you. Well, this is my first time to be presenting to the commissioners and all, so I don't know all the protocols. All they told me is I didn't have an hour and a half.
Oh, my God.
They lied to you.
They lied.
Somebody told you a lie.
I'm gonna try to zip through these. Before I get started, I do wanna recognize our other two members, Brad Joyner, Carl Branson.
Thank you, Scott.
Very informal, I'm just gonna slip through some slides, talk about what we do, what we've been doing, and what we're gonna try to do in the future. This slide here just shows the WMAs, the state parks, and the state lakes that we have management authority on. That's our state-owned and the core WMAs. Just kind of some objectives of what we do. Try to enhance wildlife on our state-owned lands for a broad suite of species. Some areas we're going to manage for quail, others for non-game, others for deer.
We're gonna manage for what?
Quail, we
Yeah.
hadn't seen one of those in a long time.
We're gonna have some quail.
You got it, they didn't warn you. They didn't warn you.
Oh, really?
That's okay,
I got-
Stan.
You did good, Stan.
That's good. And obviously, every, one of those species is gonna be managed from a forest management standpoint, a little differently. Our goal is to either maintain or create the best wildlife habitat we can, through our timber management. Improve the growth and the vigor of the timber stands through timber harvesting, making sure that the timber that is out there is growing at a good condition, because when the timber and forest is in a good condition, generally speaking, the habitat's in a good condition. We reforest areas when needed, and this is basically areas that when we acquire properties that's old fields or old agricultural lands that we feel needs to be back in the forest, we will go in and reforest those areas. On areas that we are already forested, we get regeneration naturally. We open up the stand with sunlight and timber harvesting to get the seedlings and saplings coming in naturally. But that's what that's talking about there on the reforest areas, is just old ag and old field lands. Also, we convert timber stands to the appropriate timber stands when needed. Got some areas down in South Mississippi that is in the old historical longleaf pine area. We've converted, in the process right now of converting an area down on Pascagoula back to longleaf pine. Area up in North Mississippi on Hell Creek, converting it to shortleaf pine. It's in the historical range of the shortleaf pine. And obviously this is a big one here, controlling, monitoring, eradicating invasive species when needed. The three big ones we have, y'all probably are familiar with here in Mississippi, is Kogan grass, Japanese climbing fern, and Chinese tallow tree. And those are big problems and are going to continue to get bigger as time goes on, but we deal with those as well.
And the beetles.
Pardon?
And the beetles.
Yes, and southern pine beetle is probably the biggest on the insect side. The emerald ash borer, just going back to that slide, the emerald ash borer is another one that could potentially move into the state. It has not made it here yet, but it is a big problem on the horizon. in Michigan, I think it's wiped out the entire ash from the forest, and it'll have the potential to do that here if it ever makes it to Mississippi. Just kind of the timber monitoring side of what y'all are probably familiar. A couple years ago, we had devastating floods in the South Delta, and that's an area that obviously we had just acquired, the Phil Bryant WMA, so we've been spending a lot of time on that area when the floodwaters receded to see how much timber we may have lost from the floods. We'll continue to do that. We all know that trees a lot of times die a slow death, so we didn't find many that had died originally from the flood, probably 2%, less than 2% mortality, so that's a good thing. But this past year, we went back and measured those areas again and monitored those plots again. And as we suspected, some trees that were alive the year after the flood are beginning to die now. So we'll continue to monitor that to see if any mortality continues on down the line there.
Get any from, I mean, I know we have a lot of regeneration there, but do they make it year to year?
The regeneration will make it if you, if you don't get the additional floods and it gets the sunlight to get it to grow on. If it's under a shade, it'll die out in a year or two. So if you make can time that with a harvesting operation, yes, they will. And just another sidebar, obviously with the Hurricane Zeta that just came through down south, we're in the process of monitoring what kind of damage, and it don't look to be too devastated down there as either. Just again, some invasive species control, kudzu. We didn't mention it, but it's another one that we spray and try to keep up with. Timber stand improvement, this is just going in and actually injecting non-desirable species or non-merchantable species, whether it's ironwood or small beech or hickory where we don't need it, whatnot. Again, just showing some pictures of reforestation and restoration areas. This is shortleaf pine being planted on Hell Creek. Prescribed burning is another good timber management tool. It's good for a lot of things, but it is good in the forest management world too, with managing, especially in the pine stands. Obviously, we're doing some forestry outreach. Hadn't been doing any of that lately because of the COVID, but speak to private landowners, other forestry groups and whatnot to explain what we do and learn from them as well. Obviously, a big thing that we do is the timber harvesting side, whether that be thinning in hardwoods, hardwood plantation thinnings. This picture here is at Mal Mason. These areas were planted into hardwood plantation back in the 80s, so they're getting to that age. As you can see, there's not any sunlight hitting the ground. There's no food, no deer browse, no quail browse or anything else. And so,
Going in there.
You don't need any quail browse.
So anyway, you can see that's in need of some attention, and we've got plans and already have that's underway to get those some attention. And then some other shows, pine stand thinnings, obviously we do that. Salvage operations when we have tornadoes or hurricanes that come through, a lot of times we'll have to go in and.
Like the one that hit up at Hugh White Park at Grenada Lake.
Right.
I went over there, there were some big trees down.
Right.
I mean, big trees.
Yeah, and a lot of times we'll go in and bring in somebody to do that.
I'm sure somebody wanted those big oak trees.
Yeah. And this one here, I think, was on Clarko, if I'm not mistaken here. This is kind of what we've done here in the last few years. FY 19, 20, and 21. And I will point out on FY 20, the They're still ongoing. When you do a timber bid, these are on an 18-month schedule, so a lot of times you might do one in one FY, but it's actually in the next FY before it actually gets to, gets completed. So that value on FY '20 will increase, and obviously FY '21, all of those will increase the acres, the values, and the number of sales as we're just now getting started. But that's kind of where we are currently on that.
So, in that regard right there, do you feel like we're behind, or that percentage-wise, what's the sweet spot as far as percentage of acres for harvest?
Yeah, and we don't necessarily have a set percentage. We just kind of do it on an area that needs it, and.
Is the trend to do more?
If need be, and one thing that we're getting into is the last couple of years in the Delta with the flooding that we've had, we've not been able to do anything in there. So there are some areas that, yes, has been kind of put on, hadn't been completed or because of the floods and the wet winters that we've had, or the wet years that we've had the last couple of years. So, yeah, that's, where we are to date on that, and
Are you being able to make the sales? I mean, are the sales happening?
it's been tough here lately with timber
Are you
prices as
getting
low as
bidders?
they are. It's tough to get anybody, $3 a ton on pulpwood and, $20 on, it's tough right now, it really is, and hopefully that's gonna, I think a lot of the indicators are that because of the coronavirus, people are using a lot more wood materials, at home, and the housing market is booming. So indications are maybe that will start
The word
getting
is
better.
we got 2 sawmills coming in North Mississippi and 2 sawmills coming in South Mississippi, so that can't hurt us.
That's exactly right.
Pulpwood
Exactly right.
And
So-
pellet mills coming in.
That's right. That's right. And this is just a map showing where those areas that we had done some timber management all the way from Hell Creek to the north down to Pascagoula and all points in between there. Timber evaluations, that's where, we've gone in and actually, cruise timber, measure trees, measure plots to try to get an idea of how much, timber volume and whatnot we have on areas. Our goal is to try to do between 8,000 and 12,000 acres of monitoring and cruising a year, so that in any given 10-year time frame, we've completely made it through the land base, so that we've got pretty up-to-date data on all of that.
How many acres is it total?
This right here probably go answer your question. The timbered acres on the WMA is about 104,000 acres. And you can see the numbers there with state parks and state lakes. There's the pulpwood volumes, saw timber volumes broken down by WMA, state parks, and state lakes, and there's a value there tied to those there at the bottom. And again, those are. And again, when you're looking at the total value there, understand that that's if every stick out there was liquidated and it was sandpaper when you left. Every pulpwood stick, every saw log stick was utilized. So that's why that number is a large number.
So we're averaging, well, it's not really an average, is it 567? Do you think the 567 in 19, as far as revenue wise, would that be a typical, or would that be high?
That would probably be a little bit high, but fairly, in the range of being typical, of course, yes.
I guess what I'm asking, is there a revenue goal that you guys try to come up with of what,
No, we try not to look at it on a revenue at all, because our objectives are not geared toward revenue. Now, obviously, revenue is good. Don't get me wrong. It's but our objectives is looking at an area, it needs timber harvesting for a wildlife species of whatever species we're dealing with on that particular area. It needs some timber cut to make better habitat for that species. Then we do, a timber cut there, and obviously we do generate revenue. But it's not a deciding factor. Just kind of some future plans of what we got. We've about got the management plan developed for Phil Bryant, the property that we just bought a couple of years ago. And I'll talk a little bit more about that management plan here in just a little bit, just got to give you an example of what that entails. We're developing a prioritized 5-year timber harvesting plan, and that's to kind of have that thing rolling, that at any 5-year time frame, we'll have a priority of where we do need timber harvesting or timber management, and have it prioritized so that we know that this is the top of the list. We're going to spend our efforts there, and that way that'll be, every year we will update that so that any given time we have a 5-year timber harvesting plan.
How many acres of that, in that plan, how many acres do we have in the system that, you may not know this off the top of your head, but know you can, but are encumbered by, easements or that kind of thing, like when it was purchased, that you can't do the timber management? Is there a big percentage, small percentage?
My understanding, that would be a very small percentage.
Very small.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And I'll talk a little bit about not necessarily easements and that sort of thing, but kind of when I'm talking about the Phil Bryant management plan, I'll talk a little bit about some of the considerations or hindrances to some timber management on that area, which may be applicable to others as well. An implementation of the monitoring system, like I told you about, the goal is 8,000 to 12,000 acres so that we can go through the whole timber base in a 10-year fashion. And we talked about this a little earlier, implementation of a more rigorous inventorying of and monitoring of our invasive species, whether that's plants or insects or whatnot. And just briefly, just kind of how we develop a management plan for a Phil Bryant. To just kind of give you a little history lesson, if you will. The timber management on this area was and will be an uneven age timber management regime favoring, mass-producing species, sweet pecan, your oak species, those sorts of things. So that's kind of how the management plan will be geared toward. The timber management on the area in the past was fairly aggressive. So it is a relatively young forest overall. About 80% of this WMA had some type of timber harvesting within the last 10 years on it. Now, it was obviously a select cut in some areas, a little harder in this area and not so much, but about 80% of the whole area has been, had some timber harvesting within the last 10 years on it. So it is a young forest. Obviously, there's some, historical and archaeological sites on there. There's Indian mounds, there's heron rookeries, there's a lot of neat oxbows and whatnot that are on there that will be taken care of during the timber management operations. Just briefly, timber types, the sweet gum red oak, it makes up about 40% of the area. The type they call riverfront hardwood, or we call is about 40%. It's made up mostly of your ash, your sugarberry, and sweet pecan. The overcut bitter pecan, 9%. Cottonwood, 3%. Cypress, 3%. And willow makes up less than 3%. The timber volumes, red oak is, and that's a good thing, but red oak makes up about 1/4 of the volume on the WMA. Ash 16, and y'all can see the numbers there on down the line. And that's just the top ones. There's a lot more species that are out there, but that's the top ones as far as timber volume goes.
Good one on top. Oh, yeah.
And we kind of break it down by compartments, just so it's a little smaller unit, so you can plan your harvesting and whatnot in a little smaller. You can, get a cruise on this compartment, that sort of thing. And we made the compartments based on the old club boundaries that were there at the time of the purchase to make it a little easier to.
Do you manage those, I mean, are there different overall goals for different compartments because they are different styles?
Yes, and the reason being, there are gonna be different timber types, there are gonna be different soil types, wet areas, dry areas, so yeah, they will be.
Have a different look.
Exactly, that's right. And here's just kind of, a ballpark of what the areas are, how many acres they are, the estimated volume, and the approximate years, minimum number of years to the next harvest. And as you can see, a lot of it is gonna be on down the line before it has,
Could you
any.
share that slide with us?
Sure what?
Could we get that particular slide?
Sure, sure.
It's a good one.
And lastly here, just talking about some of the considerations, access, like you talked about. A lot of this area has long access down unimproved roads, wet roads, cross drains, cross sloughs, even some private landowners that you go through. So access issues are always going to be something that we have to consider on management there. The flooding severity and duration, it seems like it's a 100-year flood every year now in that area instead of every 100 years. And so that is an impediment that we have to worry about. And the soil types, obviously a lot of the soils are very poorly drained, clay soils. They hold water, they hold moisture, so you got to be careful you have a very short window. And sometimes, I mentioned earlier that only about 20% of the area had not been harvested in the last 10 years, and you can bet where those areas are. They're in the very wettest areas, and you just have a very short window, maybe every 10 years that you can get in, and it actually dries up enough that you could make that long of a haul and get it out. But anyway, the timber types I mentioned, and obviously we'll have a certain condition that we're looking for on each one of those areas. And that's it in a nutshell. It didn't quite take me an hour and a half to get through that. So
That was a fantastic presentation.
thank you.
Very
Thank
good
you.
presentation.
Very informative.
We feel good. We know we got the man, the legend running
Yeah,
this
that's
program.
right.
That's good.
On ADCO, like property, hardwood properties, yeah, I know, I'm gonna say sell, it's not probably proper. But like if you look at a piece of property and you wanna cut this piece over here, it's a 40-acre tract, or do y'all break it into 40-acre tracts in rotation over that property over 10 to 20 years on hardwood? Would you do that on this scheme, or did ADCO do that? I thought they did it some kind of rotation. It was pretty much standard. It varied by soil type.
It did, and it was probably on about a 10 or 12-year rotation that they would try to, when they went through and select cut an area, it would be, a 10 or 12-year window before they would go back in.
That would be hardwood primarily.
That's correct. That's correct. Yes, that is correct.
But they had a different goal.
Yeah, and see, we have a different goal. than
Exactly.
they do.
That's right.
I mean, I think that's an important point to
Yeah.
make. That was
That's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We got different than what else is done.
Ours is habitat development,
Right.
maintain
Theirs was
conservation
money.
side of it. Yeah.
So Phil Bryant, what's the first thing you'll do there? Timing wise?
2 to 3 years. It was on that
A
chart.
couple of 3 years.
Is that
Yep.
3?
Yeah.
Mhm.
But the average is about 8.
That's right. That's right.
So I mean, we're really gonna see the revenue coming in 8. That's what the chart, I mean, I thought that was an interesting chart.
See, the thing about it, like, if you're managing timber, you can set goals for 500,000 a year or 300,000 a year, but when you're managing habitat, it's
You don't.
different.
That's
Yeah,
right.
you can't depend, you may cut 500,000 in 1 year and none for the next 10.
But Doc,
I understand. I know
We don't
where-
think
I know
that
where
way.
you're
We don't think that way. I gotta get,
Did you pull up that
change
chart
gears.
again, have the timing? Could you go back to that slide?
Right there.
Okay.
See, so, let's see, 1, 2,
I
3,
saw it.
4,
There's
5,
one there in a
6,
couple
7, 8, 9,
of, couple of 3 years, and then,
So 10 out of the 15 sections really won't be touched for another 8 to 10 years.
that's correct, that's correct.
What's interesting too, you see the Goose Lake, which is probably the earliest of all of them.
Is the
hardest
toughest.
one to get to.
Is the toughest, right? Huh?
It's the hardest one. to
Yeah, that's
get
what I
to.
say.
Where
That's
is-
why it's
where
ready
is
in 2
Yeah,
to 4
it-
years.
Yeah, like I said, it's all, I don't know if y'all familiar, it's all the way down that canal road, you
Yeah.
got a ditch to cross, yeah, and
It's
that's.
tough.
Oh, it's
Gotta
in
be-
the.
gotta be dry
It's
for
in
sure.
the, field road.
Yeah.
And these are more of
Well,
select cut type things you're looking at?
All
That's
of those
correct,
in field
that's
road.
correct.
So remember what he said, he
How,
compartmentalized, Bill?
Are they more
He put them in different
Shelter wood
compartments.
kind of cut, or
Yeah,
more
yeah,
just,
okay.
just a regular select cut?
Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
It'll be,
Yeah, 'cause see, you see
pretty much an
Hey, Bill,
uneven select
Bill,
cut. We
Bill,
will
you see
actually
the
go
acreage
through
in each one of
there
the
and,
compartments?
you know, mark
That's pretty
each
neat.
and every
Slide
tree.
mark.
That's what Ricky Brown
Yeah,
said.
yeah,
That's
that's
right.
right. And we will, you know, obviously that will change as you go through. He was asking the question, kind of how would you manage or mark that, or how would the cut be? You know, if you had some regeneration on the ground, like you talked about, you would get rid of a few more trees there to get a little more sunlight, to get the next stand coming along
Coming
and
on.
whatnot. So as we go through, it would vary, but it would be a select cut, as you talked about. It would be, you know, an individual tree selection cut.
That's gonna help the habitat.
What you
Yeah, it's
talking about?
flowed with all
Yeah.
that's going on.
Stan, back up a couple of slides, you had a couple of trees on there I never heard of. Oh, right there, you just passed it. No, I've heard of all those, go, is another one. No, it is a sugarberry.
You've heard it hackberry.
Oh.
It is
oh,
hackberry,
okay.
but, you know.
Sugarberry, I never heard of.
When you're get the professors from Mississippi State down, they say, no, in this area, it's gotta be sugarberry.
Sugarberry.
It's always was hackberry to me. I still.
State college name.
You ask these guys,
They
that's
call-
all I ever
They
call
call
them.
it hackberry and
Hackberry.
sugarberry, okay,
But-
that's where it
but,
came
yeah.
from. Good for you.
I tried to be politically correct.
County
with
agents got it
sugarberry.
figured out.
Steel Bayou tract that's not on here, that's out there, Steel Bayou, around 3,500 acres. Would you say the timber age?
The timber is
About the
at the
same?
sawmill, it's getting to the sawmill as we speak. Just they're in the process right now.
They're going after it now?
Yes, yes.
On that whole tract?
That's right.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
All right.
I have not personally laid eyes on it, but my understanding is they are, aggressively managing it right now.
Thank you. Good job.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stan.
Great job.
Good job by the team, too.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I know he did that presentation all by himself, right?
No, not at all. Not at all.
I kinda figured that.
Well,
That's good.
We need to go in executive session.
well, the next meeting tentatively right now will be where?
Here.
Here or where? It'll be the December.
This one, December be here.
Okay, we're fine here. Then before we go into executive session, there's a need for executive session. I'd like to have a moment of silence in memory of Warren Strange who just passed.
I think we ought to stand on that. Fine folks.
Thank you.
Very good.
Been for 40 years. I do it different locations.
I make a motion that we close the meeting to determine the need to go into executive session.
I'll second.
All in favor?
All right.
The meeting is now being closed in order to determine the need to enter into executive session.
We want to determine it.
We pause? We all?
Take
We're all.
this
All
one
right.
for the next meeting.
All right, so what we're gonna do is, The commission has voted to go into executive session to discuss relocation of business or industry, budget line items affecting personnel, potential land purchase, potential litigation, and criminal investigation. With that, the commission is now entering into executive session.